Your favorite show of the weekend, mine, Twitter Tuesday. What's my thoughts on Rick Barnes right now? Of course, there's some whispers and some frustrated Tennessee fans. I'll give you what I think on that. Plus, what is the biggest toss-up game for the University of Tennessee in the 2022 football schedule? Rob Lewis, VolQuest.com. We'll check in segment 2. And Tennessee football picked up a key commit for the class of 2023. Who is it? That and more here on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Eric Cain, here of Locked On Vols. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. Got a fun show coming up. Again, Twitter Tuesday content. We'll have a guest, Rob Lewis, who's on the Tennessee basketball beat, and we'll get some news and notes there in segment 3. Where are Tennessee, both men and women, in the latest AP poll rankings? About some more about Texas A&M, the basketball team, and a little bit more about Tennessee's newest commits for the class of 2023. Locked On Vols available every single morning wherever you listen to your podcast, completely free on every single platform, and on YouTube every single day. Premieres at 9 a.m. So go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and support the show on YouTube. Locked On Vols, it is your team every single day. Okay, so Twitter Tuesday content. I love the Twitter Tuesday content this week. Thanks so much to everybody who dived in and took part in some Twitter Tuesdays. And so we're going to go ahead and start off with Glenn. With all these preferred walk-ons, are they getting NIL money that basically makes it a scholarship? Not always the case. I think so far for Tennessee, I could be wrong, but I think so far for Tennessee, the only walk-on that has joined the club here since the turn of the new year that is receiving name, image, and likeness money would be Navy Shuler. Navy Shuler, of course, the son of Heath Shuler, came over from Tennessee after appearing, I believe, in one game at Appalachian State over 2 years. Of course, he tweeted out about a week ago, I think, that he's linked up with Spry Sports, and so obviously he is going to be getting some type of NIL compensation. I don't believe that's the case for a bunch of the other preferred walk-ons. I could be wrong, but this will be something you see in college sports. Not every single time here at the University of Tennessee, but a lot of times you will see players that will walk on, and if they have a unique backstory, or if they might be a legacy, or something of that nature, a lot of the times they will get, you're going to see them getting some name, image, and likeness money to kind of compensate for a scholarship. So how much is it? I don't know. Will be enough to, consider yourself a full ride if you were on scholarship? Some of the times maybe. But right now, I think Navy Shuler is the only one that comes to mind for Tennessee. But that is something to pay attention to, because potentially that could be a thing, moving on forward. All right, we'll get to Kurtz. If 7 wins next year is the floor based on this past season, what's the bigger swing game that could determine whether we're at 9+ wins as a team? Is it Pitt or LSU, or is it another? That's a really good question, because both of those two games are on the road. Tennessee will head up to Pitt. Really, really looking forward to going and covering that game. And I'm really looking forward to going down to Death Valley as well to LSU. Brian Kelly, I think he's a scumbag of a human being, but he is a really, really good football coach. You see all those stupid recruiting, videos LSU football has been putting out of them in that room, and they're going around and they're dancing and all that. I mean, it looks so stupid. Yes, it's something so fun to make fun of for Brian Kelly. But hey, playing checkers, or playing chess, not checkers, right? The impressions, if the recruits would have posted that video, it would have gotten some run, don't get me wrong. But if Brian Kelly is in that video, it's going to go viral. And so that's what they're doing there. So Brian Kelly is going to get that team. I mean, it was 6-6 this year, was LSU. The talent, I mean, it's just such a hotbed in Louisiana. It's always so talent rich, regardless if the team's underperforming. So it won't take long for Brian Kelly to get that team where it's going. You look at LSU coming back next year, and obviously I'm not 100% certain about the roster and the depth chart, but I know Miles Brennan is coming back. He will play for Brian Kelly. There's going to be a quarterback competition there, but obviously it's a guy that's played a whole lot before. Now they're losing a lot, but I still like BJ Ojulari on the offense, or on the defensive side of the football, rushing the passer. He's really, really good. And so they got some athletes. They got a couple running backs coming back as well, but that's going to be tough just because of the environment. That's one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. So that's going to be a challenge. You look at Pitt on the other hand. Pitt's going to, bring in Caden Slovis, former USC quarterback. He will quarterback the Pitt Panthers moving forward. You bring back the Blitnikoff, I believe is the name of the award given to the best wide receiver in the country. And that is, Jordan Addison. And so he's coming back. Pitt brings back all three of their running backs, though it's more of a passing attack team. They bring back a number of the defenders. So I want to say LSU, even though LSU's down simply because of the environment. And I don't believe that they're going to be a 6-6 team this year. They might not win 9 or 10 games, but I think they'll be better than 6-6. But Pitt brings back more, in my opinion. So it's a good question. I'll say LSU just because of where you're going. But Pitt's going to be a challenge as well. So I think that the bigger swing game might be LSU in that regard. I still think Tennessee can beat Pitt, though, to answer your question. We'll go on to Daniel. Do we realistically think that the major sports at Tennessee are still elite? Football, basketball, baseball, and softball. Well, unpopular opinion here, Daniel, but no, I don't consider anything at Tennessee elite anymore from the major revenue sports. Of course, football is not in the elite category anymore. Men's basketball is not in the elite category because it's never made a Final Four. It's had a lot of success, a lot of recruiting success. It's got to the tournament. It's won some games. It's had some nice runs through the regular season, the SEC tournament. It's not a failure. Just because you're not elite doesn't mean it's a failure, but Tennessee basketball is in good position. I think football is in good position now as it continues to rebuild. Lady Vols, I think, are getting better and better under Kelly Harper. I think it's a year ahead of schedule for Kelly Harper, but I mean, gone are the days when it's just UConn, Lady Vols, and Providence, and some of these other teams in women's hoops. Well, the SEC is so tough for women's basketball right now. Lady Vols have fallen considerably since where Pat Summitt had them, in the 2000s and late 90s, of course. Baseball made a World Series appearance. You think you got your coach in Tony Vitello, so we'll see. It's a small sample size, but we will see. But you still haven't won anything, right? You do have a World Series appearance, and that's huge, but you still haven't won anything. And then softball's got such a strong foundation. Of course, Ralph Weekly stepping down. Karen Weekly's going to take over as the sole head coach. I mean, they're there every single year, going to regionals, a lot of times going to super regionals, but haven't won anything in a long time. So in my opinion, I don't think anything's elite at Tennessee from the revenue sports, but that doesn't mean that it's a failure whatsoever. I mean, softball's in a great spot. Baseball's in a fantastic spot on the climb. Football's on the climb again. Men's basketball, you're still recruiting at a high rate. You're still bringing in 5-star players. You're still giving yourself a chance, and you still have a Hall of Fame coach. And so, and Lady Vols as well. You're kind of on the up and up there with Kelly Harper, getting back to where you hope you're going to be. But Tennessee needs to start winning some things, some SEC championships. Tennessee basketball has done that in the regular season once under Rick Barnes. Tennessee needs to start winning some tournament championships. Tennessee needs to start winning some World Series games, stuff like that, before I would consider anything to be elite. Still one of the best athletic departments in terms of just overall success in the history of college athletics, no doubt. But gone are the days of Tennessee being elite in anything, in my opinion, right now. We'll have to see, check back in a couple of years and see what happens. I think baseball's got a chance to really change that narrative here coming up pretty soon. We'll continue to work through here in Twitter Tuesday. We will go to Walnuts. Between Pitt, Florida, Mizzou, and South Carolina, which game concerns you the most for the Vols next season? Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, I talked a little bit about Pitt just a moment ago, and Pitt's returning a lot. We'll have a good quarterback. Kenny Pickett's gone. Of course, he was a Heisman finalist, but you're bringing in Caden Slovis, who's a good quarterback. I mentioned, of course, the wide receiver and Jordan Addison, bringing back a lot on defense, bringing back all three of your running backs, bringing back, I believe, Lucas Krull's gone at tight end, but nonetheless, Pitt's bringing back a lot. South Carolina has added so much via the transfer portal. Obviously, the headliner is going to be Spencer Rattler. Let's see Spencer Rattler do anything, before I'm going to give him praise, right? Can South Carolina still block anybody? I've been down on South Carolina since Shane Beamer's been there, and they've surprised me. So we will see. They've certainly done things to help themselves out via recruiting and via the transfer portal. So we'll have to see how they actually look on the field next year. Billy Napier is going to turn Florida around. I think Florida will be down a little bit this year, but it won't take long before Napier does get the Gators going in the right direction. And Missouri, I'm not even going to put them really in this conversation right now. So I would say Pitt still. I would say South Carolina is probably right behind Pitt. But again, I want to see, what South Carolina looks like on the field before I'm going to start giving them, any offseason awards, because again, that's usually how the offseason goes. We will continue through here working on our Twitter Tuesday content. Ooh, got to hit the accelerator here quickly. We'll go to Andrew. And Andrew wants to know, what is your take on Rick Barnes? The team has underperformed this year and in every March, but I feel like Pearl created unrealistic expectations for the program. Wasn't Tennessee wasn't consistently in the tournament before him, and Barnes has him at least maintained that. Is it possible to upgrade? It's always possible to upgrade. I'm never going to say this is as good as it's going to get. I think recruiting wise, this might be close to as good as it's going to get because Rick Barnes is recruited very, 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 very well. But the thing Rick Barnes has consistently missed out on since being at Tennessee is is hitting on the front court players. Admiral was a swing player. He was a good player, a developmental guy. Grant Williams turned into be a fantastic player. But, outside of those guys, I mean, Tennessee's not had a consistent front court player that you can really hang your hat on. I mean, Tennessee's been trying to hang its hat on John Fulkerson the past, 3 years, and it started off hot there for a little bit, but it's been down. Olivier Cumwell has been a nice developmental player. He's gotten better. Uros Plash is nothing you can really count on. Kyle Alexander was a nice developmental player, down the line. But Rick Barnes is where he's bringing in all these blue chippers and, Jaden Springer, Keon Johnson, swing player, and Josiah Jordan James. And I know everybody's got an opinion about him. I mean, Barnes is recruited well, but hasn't hit on the post presence an awful lot. So it's always possible to get better. Okay. But I like you. Barnes has this team at a consistent level. You're making the tournament every single year. You're a top 5 team in the SEC. A lot of times you're contending to be one of those top 2 teams in the SEC. You've gone to a couple SEC tournament championship games. You've made a Sweet 16 appearance. But a lot of times it's early exits in the month of March. It's very disappointing. Barnes puts so much of an emphasis on defense, and that's great. I think his biggest downfall is the lack of him. Of course, he's not going to say it's not important offensively or not important to shoot the basketball, but just the lack of focus on offense has been the downfall for a lot of Rick Barnes coach teams here at Tennessee outside of the years of Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield, especially that one year. So it's always possible to get better. To the people who want Rick Barnes fired right now, I'd probably say slow your roll because, again, look at how well Texas received Rick Barnes, coming back to Texas the other weekend. I think it shows that, hey, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Texas has yet to win a tournament game since Rick Barnes has left. I'm not saying that would happen to Tennessee, but I'm just saying I get the frustration, but the foundation of this program is in a great, great spot because you have a chance every single year because you're bringing in quality players. You just got to develop those players and try to hit on some more front court presence. So I hope that answers your question, Andrew. I would say slow your roll to anybody who, wants Rick Barnes fired right now. It's okay to be frustrated. Obviously, this team is just, I'll be frank with you, this team is abysmal to watch. I've said it a couple of times. It is just awful to watch. Except for, whenever you're making a 17-point, second half comeback in the last 8 minutes of the game, that was fun. But ultimately, it is kind of just what it is right now. Quickly, we will go to Facebook, and we'll hit on a couple more before we end our Twitter Tuesday content. We'll go to Brian. I just booked my trip to Tennessee football at LSU on October the 8th. That is awesome. Hope you have a great time there. What's your way too early prediction on how the Vols will perform in Death Valley against the Tigers in Brian Kelly's first year? A lot of LSU questions here so far today. I think it'll be a challenge. That's one of the toughest places to play, of course, in all college football. I think it helps that Hendon Hooker will be back. Tennessee's got an offense to where you can hang with anybody. I've mentioned that a time or two. But how Tennessee's performed on the road in big games, Tennessee ended up getting blown out by Alabama, even though you were in the game in the fourth quarter. Tennessee ended up getting blown out by Florida this past year. Those you got to take those in consideration. Tennessee won a big toss-up game on the road to Kentucky, but that place isn't very loud, so it's not going to be nothing like Death Valley. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a really, really good game. We'll know more, of course, as the matchup gets closer. But that game does give me pause because, again, it's just such a ruckus environment to play in. And despite the record this past season, LSU still will return a lot, has a good coach now, and still has so much talent every single year. Lastly, we will go to Eric. Eric, I've heard a lot about how they are unsure about how they're going to use Cam Miller. Where will he end up playing? What's your best guess when it's all said and done? All right, yeah, I love this question. Cam Miller's an athlete from Memphis Academy. His father's a football coach. His brother's a football player. His home base would be wide receiver, of course. I think he's a wide receiver. But I do think he can get some looks in the backfield. I don't think he'll ever be an every down running back. Look at Deebo Samuel. Now, I'm not saying Cam Miller will ever be Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is a player. And so could Cam Miller, but I'm just trying to draw a comparison just a little bit. He's a wide receiver, but they'll put him in the backfield and let him run the ball a little bit every now and then, try to find unique ways to get him the football. I think that's the way Tennessee could use Cam Miller down the line. He's built like a running back, runs like a wide receiver. That's the perfect combination. So that's a great problem to have. We'll see. We'll get a better picture when spring practice starts here in a couple of weeks, and that'll be one of the first questions we ask, of course. But if I'm a betting man right now, I would say his home base is wide receiver. And then where he gets comfortable in the offense and gets comfortable at this level of play, maybe they'll start giving some carries and see what he can do in certain personnel packages and certain points, situations in a football game. All right, Twitter Tuesday, a little extended version of it right there in segment 1. I would have carried it over to segment 2, but we just got a full list of things to get into. Thank you so much for your participation every Tuesday, Twitter Tuesday, right here on Locked On Vols. We got VolQuest Rob, that is Rob Lewis, coming up here when we return, talking Tennessee basketball. But first, BetOnline. There might be less football being played right now, but BetOnline.net has way more odds and info for this playoff season. From scores, totals, player performance, props, to where the next fire coach is going to land, BetOnline is your number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net, basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. Segment number 2 of a Tuesday show. I'm your host, Eric Cain, here on Locked On Vols. Thanks so much for hanging out. Tennessee basketball back in action tonight, hosting Texas A&M 7 o'clock inside Thompson-Boling Arena. And here to preview that matchup is a colleague of mine, VolQuest Rob, is where you can find him on Twitter, Rob Lewis of VolQuest.com. Rob, what's up, man?
Very little. EC, how you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing very, very well. You were in Austin covering this Tennessee-Texas matchup in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Tennessee comes back, makes it a ball game, but ultimately falls short. Josiah Jordan-James gets the last shot. Walk me through, in reviewing that last play, kind of what you saw. Did you like the look? Would you thought it should have went somewhere else? What did you see from that last play?
Well, ideally, I would have liked, even though he was 1 for 7 at that point. I mean, I think you want Santiago to get that look, but Texas knows the same thing. I mean, I think Santiago was in the left corner as Ziegler was looking at things. I think he looked at him once, saw that he was covered. His next move, then he cut pretty sharply to the middle. I think he flirted with the idea of going to the paint and getting to the rim, but he'd had a couple shots blocked in the game already. One pretty recently, before that play, and got it to Josiah for a pretty good look, not highly contested, from I guess 20, right at 21 feet. And I'm okay with it. I mean, you look at Josiah's numbers for the year, you probably don't want him taking that shot, but he's 3 of 6 from 3 at that point on the night. Santi's cold, but then again, I think, Santi was really – Texas was really trying to take that one away more than anything. They were going to make somebody else beat him, even though Santi had been cold. So, I mean, I think if you'd have told Rick that Josiah was going to get that shot, while he was in the timeout huddle with 6 seconds left, he would have been okay with it. And again, I think if Zakai had been a little more patient, I think once he broke to the middle, if you watch the replay, that Texas they left Santi. I don't know, not completely, but there's some space opened up. But there's 2 seconds and change on the clock at that point. It would have been a real tough pass. And I think Zakai looked at him once, and when it wasn't there, then I think he made up his mind, because you're not dealing with a lot of time there. And you're also talking about a true freshman.
Yeah, but regardless, it was an exciting finish. Tennessee comes back from 17 down with just under 8 minutes to go in the second half, in large part because of Zakai Ziegler and because of Josiah Jordan-James. And I'm with you. Josiah's numbers on the season don't look fantastic, especially from 3. But in the last 4 SEC games, he's actually shooting the ball pretty well from deep. But, we're into February now, and there are some things about this basketball team that have still not improved. Free throw shooting. These lull and lapse in offenses for minutes at a time throughout a game. I don't think this is a great shooting basketball team. What are things that we know about this basketball team as we now head into February with March just right around the corner? And, I think things that if they were going to improve by now, a lot of them might have already improved, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, I mean, you are what you are. I mean, they're a fringe top 20 team. think their ceiling is, finishing third or fourth in the SEC. And if this group can win 2 and make the Sweet 16, I think that's a great year. Will fans be disappointed? Some will. I mean, some always are going to be. But Tennessee was preseason 18 in the AP poll. They were preseason pick number 4 in the SEC, and that's pretty much where we are right now. I mean, I think myself and maybe some other people were a little myopic and overrated them. I mean, I never thought they were, a Final Four team or anything, but I thought they would maybe be a little bit better than they are right now. And my thinking was influenced by, I thought John Fulkerson would be more than we've seen. Certainly not a guy that got pulled from the starting lineup in January. And I thought Kennedy Chandler would have been a little bit more impactful. And I think Kennedy's had a good year. I don't think he's a disappointment talent-wise at all. I just think he's been, with some of the other problems you mentioned, Eric, shooting woes and whatnot, I think he's been asked to do more than you should probably ask for a true freshman point guard to do.
Yeah, you mentioned John Fulkerson. I don't think anybody envisioned him being benched, essentially. Now he still has a role in this team. He's still getting his, not as many minutes, but he's still getting minutes off the bench. But, I mean, John Fulkerson's kind of a catalyst for a lot of these players on this team. He'll show up and give you 7 and 7 one night, which is fantastic. And if that's what John Fulkerson would give you every single night, 7 to 10 points, 6 to 7 rebounds, I think you take it in a heartbeat. But, again, just 2 points the other night and, just doesn't show up offensively. Justin Powell, plays 11 minutes and doesn't take a shot. He's had that problem a couple of times this season. And then you mentioned a little bit with Kennedy Chandler, not a bad year, but maybe still struggling because he is just 18 years old. As far as Chandler, do you see, is he still unequivocally a first round draft pick come summertime? Lottery, I think, is out of the question.
Not in my mind. I mean, could somebody take him? Absolutely. I mean, it's so much about potential, and he so obviously has potential. But, I mean, he's a diminutive guard. He's 6 foot. I mean, he's going to be really helped out by his wingspan. I mean, he's got a freakish wingspan, like 6'7" for a kid his size. He's got huge hands. He's going to do great at the measurables part of it. But, I mean, I just think at that position, you've got to put something on tape. I mean, is he a noticeably better prospect to you, Eric, than Sharif Cooper was at Auburn last year?
No.
Who got taken 48?
No.
I mean, I don't know what Kennedy's thinking. I don't know what his parents are thinking, but I think coming back for another year would be hugely beneficial to him. And I know, this after the game, and Rick talked about this on Monday, that TJ Ford, Rick's former point guard at Texas, National Player of the Year, was in the game in attendance, and he and Kennedy have struck up a relationship. At coach's request, they've been swapping text and whatnot. They met on Saturday after the game. TJ Ford took Kennedy out on the court while post-game interviews and stuff were going on, and was telling him some things he had seen that game, like when you get it here and you're seeing this is what you got to do. And I just think not necessarily being coached by TJ Ford, but another year of high-level coaching I think would improve that kid tremendously. Would he get drafted? Yeah, I think he would get drafted somewhere, but I think he could make himself a lot of money if he would come back for one more run.
Rob Lewis, FallQuest.com, joining the show here, and Rob, Tennessee takes on. It's already played Texas Tech. It's already played Texas, so now it's time to play Texas A&M. We'll see if they play Baylor down the road. Hopefully not. But A&M comes to town, 15-6 on the season, 4-4 in SEC play. Have lost 4 in a row, 2 to number 12 Kentucky and number 19 LSU. Team, much like a lot of teams around this league, filled with a lot of transfers. What do you make of this A&M club that's kind of limping into Knoxville?
Really tough group. I mean, they're not unlike Tennessee. They don't shoot it great. They can struggle scoring some nights. In the last 5 SEC games, they've cracked 70 points just one time. They started off 4-0 in league play. They've lost 4 straight since. You mentioned that, part of that's a reflection of a really tough schedule, but they also lost by double digits at South Carolina on Saturday. They don't shoot it great, but they're really tough. I mean, I think Buzz Williams is a good coach. And you mentioned a lot of transfers. Henry Coleman, a guy from Duke, is probably the best one of the bunch, coming off a double-double. And I expect it to be a low-scoring slugfest. I mean, I think with the way they have been trending, I like Tennessee's chances. I mean, I don't make a lot out of one game. I mean, I think that's in college basketball. That's something you have to be really careful of. So I don't have a problem thinking that Tennessee can flush that Texas game pretty quickly. I don't think tonight's going to be easy against the Aggies, but I like Tennessee's chances. I think there'll be a good crowd there. Tough to win on the road. I think these Tuesday games really favor the home team when you talk about the turnarounds. Short prep time, having to travel. So, I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think Tennessee gets a win.
Yeah, Tennessee's played a couple of those little rock fight games against these Texas teams, the Longhorns, and of course Texas Tech earlier this season. Haven't been able to come out on top yet. We'll see if that's going to change coming up tonight. Real quick before we let you go, what's the latest in Tennessee recruiting? A couple of blue chippers have been on campus going to some games. Tennessee has extended some offers. Of course, B.J. Edwards here of nearby Knoxville Catholic. He's signed and ready to roll, finished up his senior year. What's the latest with Rick Barnes and the recruiting side of Tennessee basketball?
Yeah, right now, I think that your next big news is going to come in the spring from the transfer portal. Tennessee's over the next few weeks, they're going to have some 2023 prospects on campus, some highly regarded guys, a couple of guards out of Texas that we've talked about on our website. But if you ask me to bet right now, I'll be kind of surprised if they add a high school prospect to this class. Now, I do think they will be highly active, highly aggressive in the transfer portal, looking for bigs, looking for some size, looking for some guys that can come in and help immediately. But that's where I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement Tennessee recruiting wise until April.
He's Rob Lewis, VolQuest.com. Follow him on Twitter at VolQuest_Rob. He has the big takeaways immediately after the final buzzer each and every basketball game. Writes another column, and you can find him on Twitter covering Tennessee basketball each and every day as well as game day. Rob, thanks so much for the time, man.
No problem, EC. Thanks for having me.
It's Rob Lewis of VolQuest.com. And Rob, big fan of Rock Auto. The ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain and auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. So why endure the often pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brands that their websites happen to carry? You have a computer and you have access to rockauto.com in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend up to 30, 50, sometimes even 100% more on the same parts from a chain store or a dealership when rockauto.com is a family business serving it online to customers for over 20 years. Rock Auto is the prices are always so reliably low for every single customer. They've got everything you can possibly need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oils, even the new carpets. Go explore their easy-to-use website today and find a solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or your truck. While you're there, right Locked On and the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit my friends at rockauto.com. We'll go back into Locked On Vols. You got a final segment here on a Tuesday edition. I'm your host, Eric Cain. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. If you're brand new to the show, thanks so much for hanging out. I do radio in Knoxville, Tennessee at 99.1 The Sports Animal. Also a writer and a contributor covering Tennessee football, basketball, recruiting, all that and more at the rival side for Tennessee. That is volquest.com. So appreciate you guys for dialing in. Again, if you're new and want to check it out on YouTube, please go there, subscribe. Locked On Vols on YouTube every single morning at 9 a.m. A new episode drops. Please support the show on YouTube. Will mean a whole lot to me and, of course, the growth of this show. All right, a couple of things to get into here in segment number 3. We got to be a little quick here because it's been a long show. I know you guys probably don't like listening to about 35, 36 minutes of content, trying to get that down to at least 30 minutes, but you know me, I like to talk a lot. Latest AP poll, basketball. Men fall down from number 18 to number 22. Of course, that loss to Texas over the weekend. Texas was unranked, and Tennessee drops a couple of spots from 18 down to 22. The women falling to winless team in SEC play, Auburn. Although Auburn was very close in a number of SEC games heading into that Lady Vols contest, but nonetheless, I think they were 0-8 going into that contest. Picking up their first win in league play at home against the Lady Vols team. That was huge. The women fall 3 spots from number 4 down to number 7. More about Texas A&M, that matchup tonight inside TBA for the men. You've got A&M that have lost 4 straight games, 2 of which to number 12, or now number 5 Kentucky, and number, I think, 19 LSU, whatever LSU's ranked. Other games that A&M has lost in a row. Of course, it's been 4 in a row. South Carolina this past Saturday. I mentioned LSU last week. A double overtime loss, 76-73 at Arkansas last Saturday. And then, of course, Kentucky 2 weeks ago. You've got the leading scorer, which is Quentin Jackson, is a guard. He averages 14. He's averaged double figures in his last 3 games. He's got 14 games this season where he scored double figures for Texas A&M, and he's averaging about 13 points per game. That is Quentin Jackson of Texas A&M. It's a ball club that's got about 5 Division I transfers onto the roster this season. Javonte Brown from UConn, Henry Coleman III from Duke, Ethan Henderson from Arkansas, Tyrese Radford from Virginia Tech, and Marcus Williams from Wyoming. So again, you've got Buzz Williams making the most of the transfer portal coming into this season. You got Henry Coleman, again, I mentioned, from Duke. He's the leading rebounder for Texas A&M with 6 rebounds per game. He had 15 rebounds against South Carolina on Saturday. That is very, very impressive. You've got A&M that started off in non-conference play with an 11-2 non-conference record, but only one of those wins came from quadrant 1 or 2. So a lot of the wins on the season not very impressive for Texas A&M, that has a net ranking right now of 65. You compare all that to Tennessee, that's still the Volunteers. What are the Volunteers? 14-6 on the season now, 3-4 in SEC play. Let me double check on that. You got Tennessee. Love doing this. 14-6, 5-3 in SEC play. 14-6, 5-3 in SEC play for the Volunteers, who have a net ranking, the latest net ranking, at 12 in the country. Tennessee is still 5th in Ken Palm's adjusted defensive efficiency rating, and Tennessee is ranked 17th per the NCAA metric for toughest schedule. So A&M 65th in the net ranking. Tennessee is 12th. Volunteers still 5th in Ken Palm's adjusted defensive efficiency rating, and Tennessee's ranked 17th in the country per the toughest schedule from that NCAA metric. Tennessee will host Texas A&M. We'll try to get back in on the win column. Of course, Rob Lewis told us a little bit about that in the prior segment. All that tonight at 7 o'clock inside Thompson Bowling Arena. Okay, finally, we will end our show and we will discuss a Tennessee recent commit. This is a big one, okay? His name is Aiden Bussell. If you look at his Rivals profile, you're going to, walk away not very impressed. 3-star offensive tackle, 6'5", about 290, from Mount Juliet, Tennessee. He has a Rivals rating of 5.5, okay? That is very much undervalued. I'm not saying that he's going to blossom into a top 100 prospect in the country, but his recruitment will increase as the year goes on. I'm telling you that right now. This was Tennessee's, if not number one offensive lineman target on its big board. It was up there. It's certainly from the state of Tennessee in the offensive line category. Tennessee wanted Aiden Bussell. He has been a huge priority for Glenn Ellerbe and for Josh Heupel for this class of 2023. He's been on campus countless times. He was at Tennessee's junior day. I caught up with him, and he kind of said that he was thinking later in the spring for commitment day, but you can kind of read between the lines, and you can kind of sense that he was about ready to pull the trigger. This is ginormous for Tennessee. A huge pickup for the Volunteers. Becomes the third 2023 commit for Josh Heupel in this class, joining athletes defensive back Jack Luttrell of Georgia, as well as Ethan Davis, the 4-star tight end. Now you get Aiden Bussell. Again, Aiden Bussell, offensive tackle. He's long. He's athletic. He has good feet. He can play guard potentially as well. He does a good job of getting up on the second level and blocking the linebacker. He's a really good pass protector, a work in progress, but a really solid foundation. 6'5", 290. And he's a guy that, comes from an up-tempo system. Of course, nothing is like Tennessee's up-tempo. You just can't duplicate that at the high school level. You can't. But his team does run a little tempo, and I think that's good. That's something I've spoken to him about in the past, and he said when he gets to Tennessee, if he were to choose Tennessee, which he now has, it won't be shocking to him whenever he enters this up-tempo system. So it's huge for Tennessee because the Volunteers will likely take 5 to 6 offensive linemen in this class of 2023, and Aiden Bussell was the number one priority target for Tennessee on the offensive line from the in-states. You got Trevor Duncan from Knoxville Catholic, who is a big-time priority target for Tennessee. He, of course, from Knoxville Catholic, Tennessee would like to bring him in as well. You've got Bryson Sanders from Chattanooga, from Baylor School. He's a priority target for Tennessee. You got Sam Pendleton from North Carolina. You got Sullivan Absher. He's also from North Carolina. Those are kind of the other top offensive line prospects on the board for Tennessee. So number one, it was huge because It's a priority target of need at offensive line. We're going to take many guys. And number two, it's in-state. Could Aiden Bussell be the guy from in-state that gets that ball rolling for 2023 Tennessee prospects? We will see. Tennessee signed only 2 prospects from the Volunteer States in the class of 2022. That can't happen. Josh Heupel's admitted that as you continue to put the priority on in-state recruited. So Aiden Bussell, a 3-star offensive tackle, has committed to Tennessee for the class of 2023, giving Tennessee 3 commits in that class as we stand here at the beginning of February. All right, fun show. Sorry we went a little long here in today's show, but tons and tons of content. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Appreciate you for making Locked On Vols your first listen every single day. Now, check out Locked On Bets, your one-stop shop for all your sports wagering needs. That is with your boy Q, handicapping expert Lee Sterling. That's at Locked On Bets. Make that your second listen after your first listen being Locked On Vols. Every single morning, wherever you get your podcast, completely free on every single platform. That's where you can find Locked On Vols. Make it your first listen every day. And check it out on YouTube. Just search Locked On Vols on YouTube. Please subscribe to the show and support the show on YouTube. Guys, thanks so much. Been a fun show today. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll have another guest on the show. We'll recap Tennessee's win, hopefully over Texas A&M. Guys, I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody.